In the dead of night, as the flickering torchlight casts long shadows across the cobblestones, imagine a man standing silently, sharpening a sword. The steel sings with every stroke of the whetstone, a chilling melody carried through the cold air. He is not a soldier preparing for war. He is not a knight sworn to protect. He is Frantz Schmidt, executioner. And when the sun rises, blood will spill at his hands. But what makes Schmidt more terrifying than the blade itself is not just how many he killed, it's how methodically, how coldly, how relentlessly he carried out a career drenched in death. This is the story of the bloodiest executioner in history. A man both feared and despised, cursed by fate, yet remembered as one of the most brutal enforcers of justice the world has ever seen. Frantz Schmidt was not born into greatness, nor into wealth, nor even into the path he desired. He was born in 1555 in Hof, a small town in Bavaria, Germany. His father was a man of honor, a respected woodsman. But fate had a cruel way of twisting destinies. In a single day, a nobleman falsely accused Schmidt's father of a crime, and as punishment, he was forced to perform an execution. This was not just a shameful task, it was a curse. In 16th century Germany, executioners were treated as outcasts, tainted by the blood they spilled, marked for generations. It was as if a single swing of the blade had condemned not just one man, but his children and his children's children. And so, Frantz Schmidt was doomed to inherit the profession of death. Imagine being a boy, watching your father forced to kill, knowing that your destiny is no longer your own. From his earliest years, Frantz knew he could never become a craftsman, never a merchant, never a scholar. The only profession allowed to him was executioner. And so, with a heart that burned with both shame and defiance, he embraced the role, determined not to be just another butcher, but to become a master of his grim craft. By the age of 19, Frantz Schmidt performed his first execution. It was the year 1573. The condemned man was a thief accused of breaking into homes. The crowd gathered in the town square, as they always did. For them, an execution was part justice, part theater, part dark entertainment. Schmidt, young and untested, stood before the jeering mob. His hands gripped the sword, his heart pounded. He had one chance, one stroke, to prove himself. The thief knelt, the drum roll ceased, and with a swift arc of steel, Schmidt separated flesh from spirit. The head rolled, the crowd roared, and Frantz Schmidt's reign of blood had begun. Over the next 4 decades, Schmidt would carve his name into history as Germany's most infamous executioner. He carried out 394 executions. Think about that number. Nearly 400 lives ended at his hands. And these were not simple deaths. No, Schmidt mastered every method of execution known in his time: beheadings with the sword, hangings from the gallows, burnings at the stake, drownings, and, most horrifying of all, the wheel. Ah, the wheel. Perhaps the cruelest invention of medieval justice. The condemned would be tied to a cartwheel, their limbs stretched, their body broken bone by bone with an iron club. Each strike shattered bone, ruptured flesh, and drew screams that echoed across the square. Sometimes mercy meant striking the neck quickly to end the suffering. But sometimes mercy never came. Schmidt, bound by the law, carried out the sentence exactly as ordered, no more, no less. He was not free to choose kindness. He was an instrument of the court, a tool of justice. And in being that tool, he became a monster in the eyes of the people. But here lies the paradox of Frantz Schmidt. Though he killed without hesitation, he was not sadistic. In fact, he was meticulous, precise, even compassionate in a way. In his personal journal, which survives to this day, Schmidt wrote with chilling detail about each execution. He documented names, crimes, dates, and methods with the care of a surgeon recording medical cases. To him, this was not savagery, it was duty. And he believed that by performing his role flawlessly, he was purifying society, cutting out its rotten branches so that the tree of civilization could grow stronger. Yet, despite this twisted sense of honor, Schmidt lived as an outcast. Executioners were shunned. People crossed the street to avoid them. No one wanted to shake their hand, drink from their cup, or live beside them. They were considered unclean, untouchable. Schmidt, despite his official position, carried the weight of disgrace everywhere he went. He executed nobles and peasants alike, yet he could never be one of them. The irony is brutal. The man who upheld the law, who served justice with his sword, was himself condemned by society's prejudice. Still, Schmidt's story is not just one of death, it is also one of strange contradictions. By day, he was an executioner. By night, he was a healer. That's right. The same man who shattered bones and spilled blood also studied medicine, became known as a skilled healer, treating wounds, curing ailments, and helping the very people who shunned him. Perhaps this was his way of balancing the scales. Perhaps this was guilt, or perhaps it was a desperate attempt to reclaim his humanity. But for the people of Nuremberg, where he served most of his career, it meant that the executioner who could end a life at sunrise might save another by sunset. Imagine the inner turmoil of such a man, each night laying down his head, haunted by the faces of the condemned. 400 souls staring back at him from the shadows. Did he hear their screams in his sleep? Did their blood stain his dreams? Or did he harden himself so completely that he felt nothing at all? His diary gives us glimpses, but never confessions. He recorded facts, not feelings. Perhaps because feelings were too dangerous, perhaps because admitting them would break him, or perhaps he simply had none left. The people called him Meister Frantz, a grim title of respect and fear. He executed murderers, thieves, arsonists, witches, and rebels. Each crime had its punishment, and Schmidt carried it out with chilling efficiency. Some were hanged until dead. Others were burned alive for heresy. And still others suffered the wheel, their screams rising to the heavens as bones snapped like dry twigs. Crowds gathered, children perched on shoulders, vendors sold food and drink, and the spectacle of death became a form of public theater. For them, it was justice. For Schmidt, it was a career. For history, it was horror. One of his most notorious cases was that of a murderer named Hans Frischl. Frischl had killed multiple people in cold blood. For such a crime, the punishment was not swift death, but torture. Schmidt broke his bones on the wheel one by one until the man was a broken shell of his former self. Then, to finish, Schmidt delivered the fatal blow. It was not cruelty, it was law. And yet, imagine the nerves of steel required to carry it out, knowing that all eyes are upon you, that one wrong strike could turn the crowd's jeers into fury. But it was not only criminals who faced Schmidt's sword. Sometimes politics demanded blood. Sometimes the condemned were more victim than villain. And Schmidt, bound by oath, could not refuse. Each execution carried out, whether justified or not, added to his burden. Still he endured. For 45 long years he endured. At last, in 1617, Schmidt laid down his sword. He retired with a record unmatched in brutality: 394 executions, hundreds more floggings and mutilations. He was granted citizenship in Nuremberg, a rare honor for an executioner. And in his final years, he lived not as a pariah, but as a respected man. Perhaps at long last, the blood on his hands had been washed clean, or perhaps society simply chose to look away. Frantz Schmidt died in 1634, at the age of 79. A long life, especially for a man who spent his years standing so close to death. He left behind his diary a haunting testament to a life of duty, brutality, and contradiction. His words allow us to see not just the executions, but the man behind them. A man cursed by fate, yet relentless in carrying out the role forced upon him. A man who killed hundreds, yet healed hundreds more. A man who was both monster and man, hated and needed, feared and respected. And so, the story of Frantz Schmidt forces us to ask uncomfortable questions. What does it mean to be just? Is justice the sword, or the mercy behind it? Was Schmidt a murderer, or a servant of law? Is he a villain, or merely a victim of his time? History does not answer. History only records the names, the numbers, the deeds. But when we whisper the name Frantz Schmidt, we do not remember the healer, the father, the citizen. We remember the executioner, the man whose reign of blood still stains the pages of history. So the next time you think of justice, of law and order, remember this: behind every judgment lies a hand that must carry it out. And sometimes that hand belongs to a man like Frantz Schmidt, forever cursed, forever remembered as the bloodiest executioner in history.
If you enjoyed diving into this strange, scandalous corner of history, make sure to unlock more secrets with us here at Throne of Scandals. Hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a story hidden behind the golden doors of the past, because history is full of mysteries.